Welcome, everybody, to Boxing Scene Today inside the ProBox TV studios. We cover all boxing news. That's right, a lot of stuff going on. Jimmy Smith in studio alongside Paulie Malignaggi joining us via Zoom, relaxing at home. And unfortunately, J-Rod as well in studio helping me out with the news. A lot going on. Where are you starting, bud?
Well, let's go to the desert, fellas, where we had a fallout between Joseph Parker and Daniel Dubois. Dubois got sick, had a viral infection. He's out, but we have a replacement. Let's take a look at the headlines. The man from the Congo, Martin Bivol. He is in there, and he is going to shock the world. And the best thing about social media is that they called him literally like yesterday, and he's at the airport, and he decided to take a little video. Let's see what Martin Bivol was doing at the airport.
Yo, what's up? Bonjour, beauté. Hi, everyone. Like you can see, I'm waiting on my plane. So I'm ready to fly to Saudi Arabia for the fight tomorrow. Donc, we're ready to go. We got a phone call yesterday. We get proposed for the fight. I say, I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier boy. I'm in mission. So I'm to Saudi Arabia to fight. Going to fight the best man. The man who was in the camp for 4 months. We say yes to go and fight. I would like to say thank you to Excellency for, this means a lot to me, for choosing me, to replace Daniel Dubois and big cards, big platform. I'm so grateful. And big thank you to my team at Benslon. So I'm waiting already my plane, and in 1-2 hours I'll leave here for Addis Ababa and Addis Ababa to Saudi Arabia. I can't wait. I know this is unbelievable. It looks like I'm dreaming, but I'm not dreaming. So I know I keep it tomorrow. I think I'll shock the world tomorrow. I'm a boxer, so a boxer is like a soldier. Anytime they ask you to go to war, always be ready. So I'm ready to go, no matter what it is. I'll not start the camp yet, but we're ready to go. Thank you so much. This short video just to let you know that I'm on my way to Saudi Arabia. Like you can see, me and my team, we're ready to go. Waiting on the flight. Donc, Bandico, tout ça déjà prêt à Rokende. Yeah, tout ça déjà prêt à Rokende. Bagarre est dans le lobby. Donc, Babinga give you so lobby, bagarre lobby. Thank you so much, guys. I don't have more time, so I'm waiting on my flight. See you, Saudi Arabia. Martin is coming. The boogeyman.
I love it. I hope the plane got there, man. I mean, I hope so as well. But the other side, all right, there are a couple things we need to talk about. First off, Paulie, Bivol has the kind of style where you could throw him in there. He's a hard puncher. He's a big dude. It's not as though he needs a lot of, specific training for a specific guy. But the other side of it is he could be damn near 300 pounds right now. This is a guy who, when he's out of shape, is out of shape. What's your thought?
His face looks kind of full. His face looks kind of full, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of version we're gonna get. Listen, he could be a dangerous 3-round fighter, but Parker's very, very savvy, very crafty. So if it's an out of shape Bivol, I don't know what kind of a fight we're gonna get here. Bivol in shape, dude. Give me him all day against anybody. I am a fan, but I get it. We have to replace Dubois, so you had to find somebody last minute. And in the heavyweight division, you don't have to be at weight. You can just show up. So if you're out of the gym and you've been out of shape, which I'm not saying he has or hasn't, but If you're out of shape, you can still show up and fight, as opposed to a fighter who fights in a certain weight class. If he's out of shape and he gets called last minute, he probably can't make the weight at the last minute. So I guess we'll find out in the ring. But he did look a little bit full in the face, you know.
He certainly did. But Paulie, you fought Ricky Hatton, famously Ricky Fatten, right? He was known for getting out of shape in between fights. But it's one of those things where, you know, as he said, in modern boxing, you got to be ready at any time. Getting out of the gym and getting out of shape can really hurt your career, and we're seeing that more and more. Is that fair, Paulie?
Yeah, of course, Jimmy. You know, the thing about Ricky Fatten was he was Hatton by the time he got in the ring.
Yeah,
He wasn't Fatten,
yeah.
you know. So like you know, you didn't. Again, you're fighting at weight classes, and when you're smaller, so you can't take a chance on getting a last minute call because you won't be on weight. You won't qualify for the fight. In the heavyweight division, you can qualify being out of shape because there's no weight class, there's no weight number requisite. And that's the benefit and also the risk here. You know, the benefit is, okay, you get a big name in Bacoli. Like, you know, it's a fighter who I think fans are going to be a fan of. I like that he's getting the opportunity. I really think he's been frozen out unfairly after bulldozing Jared Anderson. I really felt like he was a guy who should be seen over and over and over again. Because he's not only a good fighter, but he's a fan-friendly fighter, you know? And so I didn't like that. I haven't really seen him. So in one way, I'm happy that he's going to get this opportunity. But in another way, I'm curious to see how much in shape he shows up, because in frustration that you don't get these opportunities, maybe you're out of the gym, you know, you're not training as hard. And now you're all of a sudden you're out of shape and you get this call, and maybe you're not as ready for it as you could have been. This is a big opportunity for him. But if he's not in shape, and I'm not saying he is or isn't yet, you know, I guess we'll find out on fight night. You know, Parker is not an easy guy to deal with. You know, it's just a very crafty fighter who's a former world champion himself in Joseph Parker.
What I'm curious about with this fight, you know, Kevin Rooney famously said about Mike Tyson when he fought Buster Douglas, he goes, if Tyson wasn't in shape, he should have thrown everything he had in the first couple rounds, see if you could get the guy out of there. There are two ways you can fight. As you know, Paulie, when you're not in shape, you can either slow the pace down, stay behind the jab, conserve your energy, or you throw the kitchen sink in the first couple rounds and hopefully you get that knockout. Which way do you see Bacoli going in this fight?
I disagree with Rooney a little bit. I mean, he obviously knew Tyson better than me because
Yeah.
with Douglas's jab, you weren't just going to be able to get at Douglas down that night. Douglas had a sharp jab that night. It wasn't just going to be able to. You want to be able to throw, but you got to close range still. And I don't know if it would have been that easy regardless. But going back to Bacoli, he doesn't have that style. He doesn't have a jabbing style and whatnot. And Parker has a little bit of a jabbing style, but he doesn't hold range like Buster Douglas did on that night, who's a 6'4", you know, dancing, destroying boxer when he was in shape, right? So I think Bacoli does probably have to try to start fast if he's out of shape and go for it. It's not as young of a Joseph Parker as we've seen in the past, so maybe his legs aren't as fast. You know, I do think Parker will try to box and pick his spots and pick his shots like he always does. He's a crafty veteran. He's not a bulldozer kind of a heavyweight. But I also don't think it's going to be that easy to just go up to him and throw the kitchen sink. Parker is crafty. But like I said, I mean, he's a little older, so maybe his legs are a little slower, so Bacoli may be able to get at him and try to force some rough stuff. You know, we know Bacoli can punch. We've seen it. You know, Bacoli's very, very dangerous, but he's got to be able to get in range, land, and then also when you throw the heavy stuff, it gets you tired faster. So if you're going to throw that heavy stuff and throw the kitchen sink, you got to make sure you're landing. And again, Parker's crafty in that way.
What I'm curious about, you know, you're not wearing your jacket right now, J-Rod, but we just saw the odds -1.5 for Parker. Are you a little surprised the odds are that close with a late notice fight? Usually that shift the odds at least 2-1. What's your thought on the odds real quick, J-Rod?
Yeah, I knew that Bacoli obviously would be the underdog, but to see +128.
Pretty close,
right?
man.
That's fairly even for this.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, coming up here on Boxing Scene Today, we will have a better side, and I will have the best bet of this fight. And it may be obvious to some, but I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those where you'd imagine be a little bit more skewed, but this idea that you have to be physically ready at all times in the heavyweight division, that's so difficult to do. They do tend to oftentimes get out of the gym, get a little bit heavy when they're off their big fights. But it's going to be still, I think, an excellent fight. As you said, Paulie, a crowd-pleasing fight. What's next on the docket, J-Rod?
Well, the main event, thankfully, has not been threatened. We're going to get Beterbiev and Bivol too. But interesting article over at BoxingScene.com. They're moving the venue. There's actually 2 arenas in Riyadh. There's a 25,000-seater. That's where the first one was. And there's a 6,000-seater. Well, they're moving it to the smaller venue. Fellas, is it something? Is it nothing?
All right, Paulie, I obviously want to ask you about it, but this strikes me as a what's the difference kind of move. It's not the number of people, it's the kind of crowd. We just talked about Tyson Douglas. In Japan, I've heard 100,000 people not make any noise. It doesn't matter how many. It's just that's how Japanese crowds are. Same thing in Saudi Arabia. It's the kind of crowd. It isn't the number of people. I don't think it changes a damn thing. Paulie, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I don't know that they're as quiet as the Japanese. 'Cause the Japanese is part of their culture to do that, right? And you'll know that better than me, Jimmy. But with the Saudis, I'm not sure if it's part of the culture to not cheer. I just think it's maybe they're something they're not used to. Because I do see soccer, or as Europeans call it, football, that goes over there. The Italian Super Cup was contested there in Saudi Arabia because they also like to buy some of these games in Saudi Arabia. And you do see a decent crowd, and it's not super quiet, but yeah, it's not as festive as it would be if it's in one of the Italian stadiums, right? So I get you lose some of the atmosphere in that way, and you probably lose some of the atmosphere with these fights in the Middle East as well. So as far as this bigger arena and smaller arena, maybe to make it look more full, I don't know. Some of the fights fell out. Maybe it's not as not going to sell as well, or it's not going to be as full. So maybe in a smaller arena, it'll look better. Listen, a small arena is still about 6,000 seats, so it's still a pretty good size. It's probably close to the Hulu Theater in Madison Square Garden in New York. If you fill that out, you get a nice crowd and you get a nice atmosphere. But again, the American westernized atmosphere, the British atmosphere, westernized, it's a bit more rambunctious. It's a bit more
passionate.
filled, passionate. We'll see. We'll see what we get here. But I think maybe the mindset behind switching the arena is to make it look more full, because maybe they won't be able to fill up the 25,000 seater, and the 6,000 seater will look more full. But either way, will the atmosphere make a difference? That's for us to find out. We haven't seen a crazy atmosphere in the Middle East yet. We've seen some great fights out there, but again, the atmosphere, maybe the culture still has to sort of get used to having these kind of events. Maybe they never will. I don't know. It's for us to find out. We'll see this weekend.
All right, one more question before we move on to the nuts and bolts of the fight. These are two guys in Bivol and Beterbiev. They'll fight in a ring with nobody. They'll fight in a closet. They'll fight. They have that Eastern European, it's all business kind of mentality. I don't see any kind of venue change affecting them. What's your thought on that, Paulie?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Eastern fighters, not only does that not affect them, I think they always want to go for the best possible opposition. They're not even thinking about like what a lot of Western fighters do, where you say, okay, how can I get the most money for the easiest fight? They're actually looking, how can I manifest my greatness? How can I make it undoubtedly that I'm the best fighter of my generation? How can I try to chase that, regardless of what the business aspect of it is? And of course, if you chase that, you'll obviously be compensated as well from a business perspective. But I noticed that Eastern fighters do that, while Western fighters, like I said, their mindset is tending to be, how can I grab the biggest buck for the easiest fight? And that's kind of a shame. So when it comes to Beterbiev and Bivol, I love that this fight is happening in the rematch. I thought Bivol won the first fight, so I love that the rematch does happen. And sometimes you have contested first fights and rematches don't happen. Case in point, when I fought Adrian Broner, I never got a rematch in that fight. So I think that it's a great thing that it's happening, and I think both fighters are locked in and loaded for this fight.
J-Rod, you got your ear to the ground. There are some rumors that might affect the actual nuts and bolts of the fight. Hit me with it.
Yeah, remember the first fight, Beterbiev was having like a knee issue, right? He was getting over it. Well, now they're saying, hey, that knee's 100%. Does that affect this fight at all, fellas? Like, what would you, if you thought Beterbiev had the advantage before, is it become even more of a favorite now with a healthy knee?
Well, one thing, Paulie, I'd love for you to speak about this. Bivol respected the power of Beterbiev last time. It wasn't as though he was going to hit by right hands. They didn't have a lot of sting on him because his knee was a little bit bothering him. Bivol respected the power anyway. So I think there being maybe more power behind the shot with his knee being healed. I don't see Bivol approaching it any differently. What's your thought, man?
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think if there is truth to what they're saying here, maybe Beterbiev can cut off the ring faster, and take away the spacing from Bivol a little bit better. I thought he did a pretty good job of that in the first fight, because these guys were fighting at a middle range distance almost the entire fight, and nobody was really breaking position to really allow the fight to open up. And it's really a compliment to both of those guys, how they were able to be so stubborn position-wise and fight such a great technical fight. Because a lot of times when guys open up a little bit or they break position, then the fight opens up a little bit. Both guys were so good that night that I think that wasn't able to happen, and it remained a technical fight. I think, if anything, with this knee injury, if there is truth to this, if it's not just bluster, where all like his knee's much better now, maybe he cuts off the ring a little bit faster. Maybe he takes away the spacing from Bivol a little bit more than he did the first fight, which in the first fight, he did a pretty good job of it already, and then maybe that can be the difference in the fight, Also, from the Bivol perspective, I mean, he fought a great fight the first fight. I don't know how much more you can do, like besides burn more energy and fight harder or whatnot. But that's just effort. That's not really an adjustment, because that could just make you tired and get you knocked out too. So I'm not sure from a technical perspective if Bivol will or should change anything, but he could be pressured better by Beterbiev if this is true that his knee wasn't as good as it is for this fight.
Yeah, I'm curious, J-Rod. Now, I know you're going to do your better side and tell us what's going on with the odds and everything like that. But when you look at the fight early, when it starts, and maybe Beterbiev looks a little bit sharper, J-Rod, is that something that makes you a little nervous? It starts out and Beterbiev just looks a lot better than he did the first time around.
Well, I think the best way to look at this is to exactly see what Beterbiev does at the beginning of the round. Now, is he going to be playing possum? These Eastern European guys, as Paulie likes to say, they're all business. There's not a lot of games in there, right, Paulie? I think what you get in round 1, you're going to get in round 12.
Yeah, I mean, there's game planning. There's game planning. You may start a little slower and then go a little, save up to really have a close, a faster or a better close to the fight. I'm not sure. From what we saw the first fight, I felt Bivol, when he had his energy, was the better boxer, but then he faded a little bit late in the fight as Beterbiev's pressure sort of mounted, right? So, I mean, I could see it happening again. You don't have to be a math whiz to know who won more rounds, though. So it's not that complicated. It's not algebra here. I get that Beterbiev probably closes a little bit better, and I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of goes in a similar way again. But will the early part of the fight be boxed better, or will Beterbiev be able to cut the ring off better than he did in the first fight? I know he was pressing Bivol and making him uncomfortable in the beginning of the first fight as well, but I thought Bivol did a better job of boxing. He didn't get the decision, but I think it's hanging over everybody's head, because I think about 80% of the people of the public and everybody who's spoken thinks Bivol won that fight. So I think there has to be a little bit of an extra gear to the pressure Beterbiev brings, and maybe that is from his knee being better. Maybe he's able to cut off the ring better.
I have a very simple question, Paulie. Complicated but simple. Same fight? Do we get the same judging? Because a lot of times the social pressure of people saying, as you said, 80%, I think it's about right. Do you think it's the same fight? The judges switch their opinions because of the pressure?
I don't. Yeah. I think if it's the same fight, I think, maybe the right guy gets the decision, which is Bivol. I don't think that a lot can be different unless, Beterbiev's pressure is so much more that he's able to land more. He's able to keep Bivol more defensive than Bivol had to be in the first fight. A lot of times Bivol's defense is his offense. He also keeps you sort of on edge as well. Because he's got that in and out fringe of the distance kind of style. With fringe of the punching distance kind of style. So I could see it being a very similar fight. And I could see the judging going the other way. I remember when I fought Juan Diaz in the rematch, I remember my training camp was literally, I'm not changing anything. I won the first fight. I got robbed. There's a lot of pressure now on the judges because the whole public has sort of clamored about that I got robbed. So I think if I fight the same fight again, I'll win, and it's up to him to adjust. And that's exactly what happened. So I think with the clamoring of the public, with the mostly a Bivol won the first fight opinions, I think if we see the second fight the same way, I could see Bivol getting the decision, which I think would be justified.
Dude, drop science is what we do. J-Rod, what's next?
Well, time to make some money. It's Friday. The bills are coming. Let's get into the better side. BetOnline.ag, those are our guys, and let's get after it and make some money on this huge pay-per-view card coming up on Saturday. So let's start with the main event. It's Artur Beterbiev against Dmitry Bivol, undisputed a light heavyweight championship at 175 pounds. If you look at the odds, well, Beterbiev is the favorite, right? Minus 135, Bivol plus 115, pretty close odds, but I gotta go with what Paulie was saying. Listen, I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy theory, But business is business. What would make a lot of sense business-wise? A third fight between Beterbiev and Bivol. So, how does that happen? How about Bivol by decision? Plus 140 at betonline.ag. And what I always like to do, put a little, pizza and beer money. How about that Bivol wins by split decision? Give us something to talk about, right? One guy wins, the third judge says, split decision, and look at that juicy plus 450 at betonline.ag. Listen, Bivol, whatever happens, he has to close. That's what some people say cost him the first fight, but I like Bivol by decision, and we got to put one more bet because, that's what we do. Joseph Parker against Martin Bakole. By the way, that is for the WBA interim heavyweight championship of the world. Parker, the favorite, minus 158. Bakole plus 128. But what is the bet with the big boys? How about that we go under 8.5 rounds? I don't like to give minus bets, but you got to take this bet, right? Minus 115 at betonline.ag. By the way, if Bakole can get past the fourth round, I give him the fight just because of that. What do you think, guys?
Good bet. I mean, as we were talking about, Paulie, this idea of throw the kitchen sink, or maybe he runs out of gas early. The idea it gets over 8.5 is kind of unlikely. What do you think?
I think you know what? I'm going to go with the Bivol split decision. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
That's an interesting calculated risk. One judge says Beterbiev, one judge says Bivol, the third judge says, "What do you want from me?" You know, so you know what? I'm kind of angling towards that. Man. I kind of like that one. But that's a nice, it's a sneaky good one.
It is good, especially with those odds. What is it? Plus
and it
450?
sets up more plan for a third fight because now there's more controversy again.
I love it. All the way around. Works for us, certainly, here for Boxing News. What's our next piece of boxing news, J-Rod?
Well, this pay-per-view is going to be big. Next week, we got another pay-per-view. Let's look at the schedule. Well, March 1st in Brooklyn, big pay-per-view by PBC on Amazon Prime Video. And the co-main event of Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach is going to be another banger for the WBA super lightweight title. It's Jose Valenzuela against Gary Antuanne Russell. And Gary Antuanne Russell joins us now. Jimmy and Paulie, they've got some questions for you, champ.
Hey, thanks a lot for joining us, Gary. Really appreciate it. How do you feel about the style of Rayo Valenzuela? His last time out, he looked better than he ever has against Isaac Pitbull Cruz. He's long, good combinations. What's your thought on taking him on stylistically, man?
He definitely showed a sense of adversity. Yeah. You know, a lot of times with shorter fighters, when they fight a longer fighter, they get man-adored. You know, I feel like if you are the longer fighter, you should keep the shorter fighter at bay. That's just the smart thing to do. And he showed that he was able to listen, be flexible on changing how he normally fight. Because a lot of times when he fought Chris Colbert, both times he was the one applying that pressure. You know, he was the aggressor. And hell, all of his fights, he was the aggressor. So it was a good look for him. You know, I know that he's with a new trainer and he's trying to just add more to his arsenal. Has he fought a person like me? No. I know that for a fact. So he better bring his A game and may the best man win.
Gary, you know, you obviously come from a line of a royalty in boxing, right? You guys got a great bloodline in boxing in your family. Has the upbringing and the preparation through your amateur career and pro career prepared you for a moment like this, which essentially, you know, championship of the world?
Paulie, you've been in the game for a long time. So as far as how the gym environment goes, blood, sweat, and tears. Don't got space for too much error. If you're not going to be open-minded, might as well stay at home because you got to be an empty cup when you go in that gym. You know?
Of course.
Definitely humility. I've been taught humility. You know, it's been times where we're trying to work on certain things, we're testing certain combinations, and not all the time when you're trying it out, you get it the first time, you get it the second time, but you might get it the third time. And the fact that you're continuously trying when you don't get it shows a certain level of grit. And that grit is what you're going to need on a professional level. You can't be distinguished because you got one loss. You can't feel diminished because you feel like your last performance wasn't top tier. That happens. It happens, but it shouldn't stop you from feeling or knowing that you got what's needed
So,
to be
so,
victorious.
so, Gary, it's the mentality that's been bred into you.
It's
It's a psychology.
it's definitely a mentality. Some people have it already naturally, and some people they get it, instilled into them. It got to be taught. I had both. I got it naturally, and it was instilled into me. I lived it, sleep it, shit it, eat it, like all of my life. All of us do it. So that's the background that I have within the gym and within my family. Like this is what we do. It doesn't define who we are, but when it comes to boxing, this is what we do. So the last shocker with Alberto Pollo, I didn't take no loss. For real, took a lesson. It was a lesson.
When
Back at it. Back at it.
Good way to look at it.
when you look at this fight, Rayo Valenzuela stayed very disciplined last time out against Isaac Cruz. He moved well. He kept his range well. In other fights, as you said, he can get a little over-aggressive, sometimes get away from that range game. Which guy are you expecting in this fight?
I'm expecting him, honestly, to be intense, real intense, because he know that I'm an aggressive fighter, and he's not going to be able to show the level of aggression that he showed with everybody else with me. Not only because I'm aggressive as well, but because the package that I have. I'm fast, I'm strong, I'm sharp, and I'm relentless when it comes to my level of aggression. And not all the time it's good to fight strength with strength. You got to use your brain, have a certain level of defensive discipline. And he's going to have that, or it's going to be a short night.
How do you see the 140-pound division, Gary? The landscape of the weight class. It's a pretty deep weight class. How do you see yourself fitting into that?
Like I've always said, I want to get all of the belts, be undisputed. I get this belt immediately, unifying, and we're going to keep the line moving. 140 division has always been a stacked division. Throughout history of boxing, it's always been a stacked division.
When you look at it now, the skill set you're bringing right now, you talk about your education through the game and how many years you've been in it with your family. You talk about this opportunity and how good the 140-pound division is. Where are you peaking right now? Do you feel like you're at the top of your skills, or do you believe that's a couple years down the road? Where do you believe you are right now in your career?
I feel like I've been, I wouldn't say docile, but I haven't had to go into an extreme creativity mode. And a lot of times what wins fighters over is their level of creativity. Everybody use the same punches. Use a jab, a left cross, right hook, left hook, body shots on both sides. So you have your uppercuts. And Paulie should be able to understand this more than anyone right now, because I feel like he was real creative with his hands. And a lot of people looked at Paulie Malignaggi as, oh, he's not a big puncher, but he was fast and he threw combinations. He had great creativity, and that's what won him over. And he had an IQ. So your IQ, high IQ, and having a great creativity within your arsenal, it can win you over a lot of fights against a lot of opponents. That's
I
what set
appreciate that, Gary.
everybody apart. I never really had to go into a bag to my creativity with my opponents. It was just, okay, this guy's one dimensional. I know I can use this tool and I can get the job done. So that's what I had to do. So now that I lost, it's kind of like I got a chip on my shoulder, and now I'm about to use this creativity. Now, am I at my peak right now? No. But I'm definitely, I know that I'm a professional.
Gary, March 1st is the fight. It's a big pay-per-view card. We're gonna see you stealing the headlines. It's a card where I feel the undercard is better than the main event. Honestly, and your fight is one of the reasons why.
There we
We're
go.
gonna see Gary Antuanne stealing all the headlines March 2nd.
There we go. You taking the words out of my mouth. I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it. You said it, not me. But that's what's going down.
Hey, Gary, we appreciate your time so much. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to a great fight, bud. Best of luck to you, brother.
Thank you.
March 1st, where's Brooklyn at? It's going to be a great banger of a fight. Talking about a banger of a fight, fellas, Ben Davison, Anthony Joshua's trainer, says that there's a better chance than ever that we get to see Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. What say you, fellas?
I care about nothing that comes out of anyone's mouth other than Tyson Fury. He's the X factor. He's the wild card. He's the one that's always retiring. He's the one we don't know if he's coming back, any of this stuff. I just don't believe anything that doesn't come out of the mouth of Tyson Fury, because everything can line up, Paulie. Everything can line up except Tyson Fury, and it doesn't work. Am I wrong? Prove me wrong.
You're right.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you're 100% right. I can't disagree there, but I also listen. I think this is just two names at this point. You're just making the fight because it's an all British clash. I'd like to see it. I'd tune in. I'm a boxing fan. There's this still has some shine. There's still some shine to this fight, but in the grand scheme of things, the heavyweight division is pretty fun right now. This is not the most fun heavyweight fight to think about, but because of the fanfare behind both guys and because of what they have accomplished in their career, which is a lot, I think a fight between these two will still raise a lot of curiosity. At this point, though, I think it's a little bit like Lennox and Bruno was back in the day, where it could have been even bigger before if it would have happened at the right time. Lennox and Bruno, don't get me wrong, was a big fight even for the U.S. at the time it happened, but it was bigger in the U.K. Bruno had already been eviscerated by Tyson, but I think Bruno ended up coming back and winning a championship, and obviously Lewis had a great career even after the Bruno fight. But at the moment in time that Lennox Lewis and Bruno fought, it was more so a big British clash than anything the Americans were super, super excited about. And I think that this fight kind of is the same thing. We're boxing fans. As boxing fans, we'll be curious. We'll tune in. With the power of the internet, I'm sure it'll get even more attention because these guys were big stars and have been big players in the heavyweight division in their generation. But I think this was a better fight before. Nonetheless, do I want to watch it? Of course, bro. I'm a boxing fan.
Of course, bro. That should be our tagline for the show. Of course, bro. I'm a boxing fan. Paulie, appreciate you as always. J-Rod, you got to get an uglier jacket if you're going to do the better side. I got to call you out on that one. Other than that, appreciate you, of course, bet with J-Rod every single time. And maybe most of the time he'll make money. Only way to say it. Anyway, join us for our watch-along. That's right. This weekend, it's going to be an all-day affair. Starting, that's right, nice and early. Tune in here at ProBox TV. Paulie and I along on the watch along, but this has been Boxing Scene. All your boxing news, never miss it. Download the app now and find out why millions are watching. For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.